Hello, how are you? Let's get started with the second broadcast of the day, and well, we have a scientific topic. A situation involving testimonies claiming that many people have been hearing a kind of buzzing sound. And well, apparently, this seems to be related to the planet's geomagnetic field. How is this affecting people? What's going on? Well, let's get into the details. Let's talk about this matter. Thank you very much for being here. Hey, whether you're joining live or watching later, go ahead and give it a like, share it. That really helps the channel a lot. Let's get into the details. How have you been? How are you doing? Patri, how have you been? Who else is here? Greetings from there. Who is it? Let's see. I can't see the chat from where I am. Thank you so much to the whole community that, by the way, is joining us. Thank you as well. There it is. It's starting to show up. It looks like the stream is coming through. All right, great. Thank you very much. How have you been? How's everything going? A big greeting to the whole community. I have you all here. I don't know what mode it's in. There's Carlos. Look, that's great, Carlos. It says there, Carlos. That's great, Carlos. Patri. Let's discuss current world events together instead of just going with the flow. Thanks for joining this broadcast. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Here, it's sunny and about 37 or 38 degrees. We've checked the temperature, so let's get into the details. What's happening in this situation? A geomagnetic movement has been reported, which people have supposedly been feeling. I mean, there are people who say they can feel it, right? It's very interesting, isn't it? There have been unusual spikes in the Schumann resonance, which are causing alarm after reports of high-pitched buzzing, fatigue, and brain fog. This started in February 2016. If you felt it this month, like if you say you've never felt it before and suddenly you've been experiencing these symptoms, it would be good if you shared it in the comments. No, up until now, I haven't felt anything, right? Honestly, I haven't experienced it myself, but this is catching the attention of scientists. And well, this geomagnetic movement has had certain peaks, but those variations happen from time to time on the planet. They're like anomalies, so to speak. They happen from time to time. So what does it refer to, that situation? The planet's natural frequency is once again a major topic in scientific debate and especially on social media. I've seen it often. The phenomenon known as the Schumann resonance has been showing a series of high peaks, this in the month of February. According to public space monitoring applications, these peaks have been detected. By the way, the effects can be, the brain has the ability to detect them. Natural electromagnetic vibration generated by thousands of lightning strikes hitting the Earth every second. These waves bounce off the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. This is called eco-global. The famous 7.83 Hz is that main frequency at which what they call the planet's electromagnetic heartbeat is usually considered. We have witnessed here, you and I, a series of solar storms in the last few weeks. Very interesting, right? The so-called solar storms, which have been affecting some, from moderate to severe, but for example this week it was a moderate one. It has caused an alteration in the Earth's magnetic field, temporarily raising the average values. They also warn about the phenomenon of the measurement called the Geomagnetic K-index. We've talked about it here, we've explained it to you. Some values above 5 for several days are technically already considered a geomagnetic storm. The brain produces waves called theta between 4 and 8 Hz. When we are relaxed especially, or when we are about to sleep or already asleep, these variations match the frequency base de la Tierra. The only thing I can tell you, in my particular case, is that yesterday and a couple of days during the week, if I was very active, did my brain realize that I couldn't relax? I started working, I started doing other things. But the other days I've slept peacefully, normally, like I always said, but there were a couple of days when I was very active. I don't know if this has anything to do with it or not. I'm mentioning it because I haven't heard any buzzing, no dizziness, nothing like that, not even exhaustion. On the contrary, I had a lot of energy. In that sense, I haven't noticed it, but I did have insomnia for a couple of days, 2 or 3 days. Some researchers suggest that this frequency might be being felt by people. Look, because it's not a person. Thousands of people are reporting high-pitched buzzing in their ears, like tinnitus, headaches, muscle tension, fatigue, and brain fog, what they call brain fog. Doctors remind us that these symptoms also have other common causes. I mean, it could just be fatigue, it could be other things, so it's not necessarily this, but it's something that's being investigated, that's being taken seriously. Doctors remind us that there are symptoms very similar to this in other types of conditions. So also, well, I mean now, if suddenly we notice that there are a lot of people who have these symptoms, well, maybe it would be curious, like to investigate, to determine what's happening. In that sense, it might be interesting to try to figure it out now. Thank you to Pepe and everyone joining. Leave your comments and let us know if you received the notification. Thanks for your feedback. What do you think? What do you think is happening? Geomagnetic storms have effects on power grids, satellites, radio communications, and air navigation. Or, well, it's even believed that it could affect the planet itself. I mean, that the solar storm could have some effect on the planet. A topic that has also been studied, and there is documentation that indicates it's possible that it might actually affect the planet. I mean, that it could affect the geological part. I'm referring to a topic that has been under discussion for some time. What there isn't yet is conclusive evidence. I mean, it's still something that's being studied. It's about what happens with the brain. I mean, there are even some applications of this topic, the geomagnetic topic and all that they show you there. Among the warnings, they say, well, it's possible that some people might feel a migraine, some headache, etc. In the end, I say, well, we're kind of like antennas too, us human beings, right? The earth itself vibrates, and human beings also have a certain vibration, a certain energy that we emit and also receive. We're also receivers. In fact, even when it has been studied, when certain strong storms approach, people, some more sensitive individuals, experience a certain effect. There is a very specific lady who was studied in Hawaii, about a lady who every time there was an eruption felt bad, extremely bad. The lady couldn't even stand up. She had to lie down because of the severe dizziness she experienced whenever an eruption occurred. I don't know if they ever found an explanation or not, but she had that characteristic. In the end, there have been cases at least that give you the idea that the planet could have an effect on humans, either directly or indirectly. We're still paying attention to this resonance peak. There are many theories, and there's a bit of, especially among people who have felt this, does it freak you out that you've never had these kinds of effects and suddenly you do? It's kind of strange. It's not something common in these peaks that have happened lately. Well, I'll leave the video here, that's the point, but I find it interesting, and above all, if anyone has felt it, comment about it, and if not, that's okay too. Now, it will be interesting to keep observing this topic, so let's move on to other interesting matters happening in the world. Thank you to those who are joining live. Let's move on to other topics. Greetings to Yesenia as well. Thank you very much, Yesenia. Greetings all the way to Panama. To the whole community, she says. I got the notification, first from YouTube and a few minutes later from WhatsApp. That's great. Thank you. That's great, Patri. I'm glad you got both notifications. So, there we are now. There it is. We're on Telegram. There's the link. You can also find us on WhatsApp. Look for us as Pepe and Vivo and you'll find us there. Let's move on to the next topic. Check out what's happening that we're going to talk about. It's becoming more and more noticeable in this current siege against European infrastructure. Right now, there are a series of cyber attacks happening that are hitting critical infrastructure. In Romania and Poland, even in Italy. Wind farms, universities, oil pipelines, even the Italian Olympics were targeted as well. Europe is facing a new phase of hybrid warfare, where the issue of the internet connectivity has been severely affected. The Polish energy sector was also the target of a coordinated attack that affected wind farms and photovoltaic plants, in which there has been an attempt to disrupt control of that industry. It's not just about stealing data anymore. Now they're trying to render the physical equipment useless. I mean, that level of hacking. We're talking, let's see, in a country where the country is trying to hit the energy sector. Well, obviously that's huge. It can have a very strong impact, especially considering these are countries that have already had tensions for some time. The indications right now, up to this moment, now point to groups linked to structures backed by a government. In other words, these are hacker capabilities, but apparently they have a government-level backing and are groups linked to a state. In this case, regarding the war between Russia and Ukraine, it seems that's where these kinds of effects are coming from. Italy itself has already reported that during the Winter Olympics in Milan Cortina, there were sabotage attempts against the organization's infrastructure and the hotels. There have also been, in recent days in Europe, disruptions or attempted disruptions to train networks, for example. We have also mentioned this in Germany, and in fact, this time the Germans said, "It seems to us that the attack is coming from Russia, according to them, Romania, and the ransomware killing." Also, the state-owned company Concept for Adults suffered an attack attributed to the O-Cooling Group, which claims to have stolen about a terabyte of sensitive data. Funded documents and scanned passports were also published as proof of this group's intrusion. The University of Sapienza in Rome, for example, also experienced severe disruptions to its systems, with students unable to access exams. There were no academic services and so on. This happens through malware and even through possible leaks. Thank you. Be careful with that. Be careful with that issue. Because I don't know if it's Russia, if it's Korea, if it's China, if it's some country. An internal hack as well, right? The challenges are there, and let's move on to other matters, other important topics as well. Thank you very much, he says. Legalize marijuana? David says, this is for Mexico, right? So, does he mean that it's being legalized? Or that you're asking for it to be legalized? Or is he saying that they're already legalizing it, right? I see that that topic seems to be moving, but it's going slowly, right? In Mexico, I don't know if... Sometimes you want openness, other times you don't. Not this, but well... I don't know if you know anything that happened there, but for now it seems like there's nothing. Now, on to other matters, other important topics as well. No. Fize esta imagen que está... Well, let's see if we can put it here. Es esta imagen. I have it in which... Let's see if we can put it here. An image has been circulating in which you can see this Trump, here it is, this is it, in which Trump not only announces the effect that the tariffs issue will have, which now he's going to approach differently because they've already cut off the tariffs issue, but now he makes a threat. He says that the Supreme Court has now given him permission to destroy any country. Because he says, look, either I put tariffs on you and charge you a little bit, or I completely destroy your business 100%. I mean, I don't allow any business with the United States. That would also have a terrible effect on the United States. That's why they haven't done it. Otherwise, they would have done it a long time ago if it were convenient. For now, they want to announce a supposed 10% global tariff, which will also have legal implications. But he makes a very harsh comment in which he basically says, basically, the Supreme Court has given me permission to do whatever I want. Let's go to this comment that's out there. I'll put it up there. But these kind of, let's say, comments about things that are happening right now really draws attention. And I think that too. Well, it's part of the controversies that are going to be happening right now if Donald Trump's main economic strategy didn't work. He's going to do everything possible to blame someone else. He's not going to take responsibility himself. Obviously, he's going to blame the Supreme Court. He's gonna say 1,000 things, but obviously it doesn't seem like there's going to be a clear statement from him. The Supreme Court has granted me the unquestionable right to destroy foreign countries, he says, referring precisely to what he claims. We can totally veto a country, but they don't allow me to put a small tariff on it. That's basically what he's saying. And that's, well, the narrative, the style that this Trump is going to use to keep talking about that topic. Also, the issue with Iran is things are getting interesting. We'll talk to you about that matter, about how that topic is going today, also in a publication. At this moment, the lawyer for this Westerner, one of the people involved, a billionaire businessman deeply involved with the Einstein issue, is speaking. There is his lawyer, he's whispering in his ear, and you can hear him say, "I'm joking, I'll kill you if you answer. I'll kill you if you answer the question with more than 5 words. Alright, and he laughs. This Westerner, he is Michael Levy, Westerner's lawyer. He's the gentleman with gray hair, the gentleman there. Why does he say that? Because when clients start talking and talking and talking, they can say things that implicate themselves and get into trouble. So he says no more than 5 words, like, really think about what you're going to say, basically. But anyway, he called. She was also struck today by this situation between Trump's threat and the fact that the circle is closing in on the Einstein issue. Let's see what happens in Iran, since that situation is still pending. What's happening in Iran? Let's get into the details. But right now, there are movements happening in Iran, both from the United States and from the Iranians themselves. There is already a live message, as there is every day, from the Iranians, in which they issue, another threat once again. They claim to want negotiations but also make threats, he says. The United States also wants talks, yet we're seeing increased military presence. Should we start with Iran's statements now? Iran issues a warning, this time doing it at the United Nations itself before the United Nations. They assure that they will respond decisively if Washington launches an attack, raising the tension to the maximum. Tension with the United States has escalated diplomatically and militarily. The Iranian regime sent an official letter to the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, filing a complaint about a military threat from Washington in the letter. In the letter, the Iranian ambassador to the United Nations, whose name is Amir Saeed, says, Irabani stated that Iran will respond decisively if it is attacked. Tehran warned that all United States bases, installations, and assets in the region are considered legitimate targets. The base that is in Qatar, the aircraft carriers that are here, in this area of the Arabian Sea and the Mediterranean Sea over here, and the bases that might be in Iraq, in Syria, which are already on their way out, in Saudi Arabia, etc. That's also part of what's being reported, right? Have a good afternoon to you too. Marcos Herrera, how have you been? Christina, how have you been? Thank you very much. Israel, how are you? How have you been? And yes, it reminds me of the threat in the Asian Pacific in 2017, says Israel. That sound reminds me of the threats from the Pacific. What happened there? I don't remember. Israel, what happened around that time? Good afternoon, Beatrice and Jose Zarate, my namesake. How have you been? Thanks and greetings, Beatrice and Jose. Everyone, look at what Donald Trump says he reportedly mentioned. And moving on to the United States part. Today, it could be a short attack. Not an attack, let's say controlled, quick. Iran maintains that they are not going to start the war, but they are ready to carry it out. And the Iranian government insists that they are not developing nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, today I have to say that this absolute ambiguity, on the other hand, is a bit like something Mafalda would make a comic about on this topic. Because it's really crazy, it's like watching two crazy people talking. I just can't find another metaphor here. I mean, every day they say completely different things. I mean, Aragashi says, and I don't doubt that the negotiations are pretty bizarre, right? But Aragashi says that they're not even being asked in the negotiations. They haven't been asked to stop enriching uranium. But out here, what the United States says is that that's the red line, that it can't be crossed, that they can't enrich uranium, that they can't have a nuclear program other than a civilian one. So what are we talking about? There's negotiation, there's no negotiation. Supposedly in 3 days there will be negotiation, but then they make a threat today, Iran said. In 3 days the negotiation will be ready, the agreement will be ready in 3 days at the latest. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Monday, so I was saying March, no Monday, actually between Monday, it could even be ready before then. Meanwhile, Congress is about to give in to Trump's decision on Iran. And that would be very important because if he has Congress's permission, this will go to war. The House and Senate are moving to let the president take military action in the Middle East without restrictions. This is happening in Congress right now, according to what Axios reveals. This outlet claims that Congress is about to have, well, a move in which they would support a conflict. According to the report, barring a last-minute surprise, congressional leaders are not going to strongly block a possible military escalation in the Middle East. In other words, if there is an agreement in that sense, maybe not everyone agrees, but a large enough majority does. The vote would be related to the War Powers Act, which is designed to limit the president's ability to involve the country in conflicts without formal legislative authorization. Congress, in this Rokana, plans to force a resolution in the coming weeks to require that any military action against Iran must have explicit approval from Congress. But it's uncertain, no one knows what will happen, it's still not clear yet. Meanwhile, another issue that's also important, right? Yesterday we discussed this. Let's look at the map as it's easier to understand visually. Yesterday we were telling you about the day before. First, all of this started 2 days ago when we said, look, here's the famous island, this one right here. Look, this one is right here. In this part, here's the famous territory. It says British Indian Ocean Territory, which is the famous Diego Garcia. Yes, this area right here, look, there it is. It's tiny, really tiny. I mean, to pass the geography exam, this is the famous Diego Garcia, which would be about here. Think about it. Where is it? It's at the same latitude as Tanzania. On this side, here it is. How many thousands of kilometers would it be to get to Iran? Yes. 3,000 easily. 3,000 kilometers. So for Iran, it's impossible to attack this base? Yes, so they could attack freely without any trouble. From this area, which, by the way, is English, as you can see, it's still British territory because it seems like they want to transfer this to another country. The other country nearby is called Mauritius because there's an illegal issue. There's a problem there. How are you? Soul David, greetings. Very good. Let's talk about how the oil is doing right now since we're here. Thank you. Reports say the United States and United Kingdom are negotiating the use of Diego de Garcia. Because Donald Trump is pressuring, he wants to use that base, and the United Kingdom told him no. There is tension between Washington and London, increasing because of England's refusal to allow attacks from that base. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, met in Washington with the British Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, to discuss the future of the Diego Garcia military base. The island is part of the so-called Chagos Archipelago, a territory whose sovereignty is disputed, between the United Kingdom, which agreed to give the island to Mauritius, and Donald Trump, who said, "Are you crazy? How will you transfer it? We're there too, aren't we? There's a military base there and we won't move it." They claimed they wouldn't move it and said not to worry, but they're transferring it anyway. Who really knows what's going on? The big mistake, says Trump about this issue. The interesting point about this whole matter, about this whole region, about this base, is that if the United States can't operate here, and that's still not clear, the conflict could even be on hold. The United States doesn't want to attack if it doesn't have a clear base, because what Qatar and these countries have told the United States is don't attack. I mean, you can have soldiers there, but those soldiers can't attack directly. Iran, they have to get out of there and go to international, and from there they can do whatever they want. But the attack shouldn't come from Qatar. It shouldn't come from any military base in Iran. Those countries, at least up until now, that's the agreement they have. So yeah, it's really crazy. Well, let's move on to other matters. Let's quickly go to other topics and to the comments. Also, those kinds of insects are really crazy. Look at that. It's never easy to see them. You really have to have a trained eye to spot where they are. I've seen those butterflies that look like leaves, but I haven't seen that kind of thing. Well, let's move on to what's happening in Japan quickly, and then we'll go to the comments. Japan is taking a tougher stance with China. They're pointing that way. Are they upset? Sanae Takahashi, well, she didn't like China's overreaction. The Prime Minister warns that this reaction from China sounds more like coercion, right? I mean, the Chinese are getting really intense because their tourism in Tokyo has been affected. In other words, they told the Chinese to preferably not travel there anymore, and there's a lot of tourism from China. They go back and forth to Tokyo, back and forth. They like going to Tokyo. The Prime Minister issued a direct warning against China in her first major speech after winning the majority in the lower house from the parliament in Tokyo. She stated that Japan is facing a more severe and complex security environment. The most complex since World War II. That's a strong speech. That's why they call her the Iron Lady, right? Sanae Takahashi. A prime minister who is not only the prime minister of Japan, but it's been a long time since Japan had such a tough politician. They've usually been more, let's say, diplomatic, or at least the ones they've had recently, but the Iron Lady, as she's known, has been intense, let's say. She specifically pointed out that Chinese coercion, they say, in the East China Sea and the South China Sea is constant. She claims that they are trying to change the status quo through force or strategic pressure. Tension has been escalating, as Takahashi also stated that Japan could use military force if an attack occurs against Taiwan, from China to Taiwan, right? Because that threatens Japan as well. And that's what triggered this whole conflict, this tension that's going on. But today he takes it back again, right? With more than 2/3 of parliament and under the control of his coalition. Now he has a free hand to deeply reform Japan's defense policy. And although it's not enough for him to change the constitution, he would have to reach an agreement with another party. Although he has a pretty good majority, it's not enough to change Congress. To change the constitution, he needs something extra because you still have to have even more support. But could he reach an agreement? It's even been hinted at being able to use nuclear branches. I mean, plenty of capability, right? But anyway, let's move on to the comments. How have you been? Thanks for joining us. How are you, Angel? Antonia says, once I get the notification, I always choose. I always follow your show. Thank you so much, Antonia. I'm glad you got the notification. That makes me really happy. That's great. There were a few days they didn't come through, but it seems things are returning to normal. There are still some glitches, though. I haven't been able to talk to the people at YouTube, but, you know, they don't really know about these things. I mean, when I ask them, they say no, because that goes to areas like engineering and other departments. And what about it? The contact you can have as a content creator, so to speak. Well, it's contact with people who know about the basics. Basically, just the basic rules, nothing more. But if you ask them technical things like, why is YouTube failing? Why is it? They say, I'm going to ask, and well, I mean, yes, they do answer you, but they take a while to respond because it's not directly with them, right? I mean, they do a very good job. When it comes to saying, hey, look, you know what? Well, I don't know. There's a new tool, right? For example, right now they're announcing a tool for shorts that's coming. I think it's already active. I haven't used it, but that's because I don't see a use for it for me. I mean, they're used and then I realize what they are. It's like you mix several images and those images come together and make a new image for a video. Or is it something really curious? I'm not sure how it works. We'll look into it later. Greetings, Beatrice. How have you been, Angel Perez? Very good. How have you been? He says. The war will begin on March 3rd, 2026, or in March. You say so. Okay, great. Greetings, Angel. There's Angel's prediction. Not many predictions with numbers. There have been several already, huh? On different dates. Greetings, Francisco Arce, Angel Murillo. How have you been? Very good. Big greetings, Miguel, huh? Miguel Pina, greetings. Good afternoon. How have you been here? Everything's calm, says Jose. Great. Hey, I was left curious. No, I haven't been able to go out yet. It's 3 o'clock right now. 34 degrees. 34 degrees is the temperature. It's not going to be as hot as yesterday. By the way, a northern front is approaching, not coming in just yet, and it's coming from the United States. Passing through Nuevo Mexico towards Chihuahua, not the east. And then after that, another one is coming, which will be forming from here to tomorrow in this area of the Gulf of Mexico. No, also not this month, and I'm getting a little ahead for the day after tomorrow. Actually, more like Sunday. By Sunday, it's already there, and it's also bringing strong winds. So, well, keep that in mind too. It's like at night we see what's happening in the world with the weather, what's going on over there. For Oregon and Washington, is this phenomenon coming? For the next few days, there will be quite strong winds affecting some regions, and for the east as well. It looks like something is coming over there too. So we'll talk about it later, he says. Greetings. How have you been, Angel? Very good. Nicole and Franco, how have you been? Very good. Greetings to you and the whole community joining. David, Laura, how have you been? Greetings to Uruguay. It's been a while, right? It got legalized there, didn't it? Yes, that's right. Azul, how have you been? Very good, she says. 2 things have happened to me. Fogginess and mental hyperactivity, also a kind of hot flash, says Azul. And look how interesting. Thanks for the information, and you say you haven't had it before. It got legalized here. Greetings, Patri. Very good. Let's move on to other matters. Let's move on to other topics. Thank you so much for sharing, for being here with us. Let's move on to others, he says. No rain at all, Pepe. Here in Florida, could it be true? We've had small fires because everything is burned from the cold. Fortunately, they've managed to control them. So because of the excess cold, things burn. That's what they call it, right? When the plant dries out and then once the moisture is gone, everything is left dry. And that's when fires can potentially start. Great, thanks for the info. Greetings, Patri. Well, we'll see each other in a little while. We'll keep talking. Thanks for joining us in the second live stream. If you can, check out the previous one. It's there. We spent some time talking about other topics. Big hug. Take care. See you later.